Now, today's show is a topic that is very, very personal for me. Just like many of you, I've lived a life full of experiences. I'm talking about the highs and the lows. And one of those lows in particular is what fueled my passion for this subject today. And this is the shooting of Megan Thee Stallion and the subsequent trial of Tory Lanez. What bothered me so much was the way Megan was treated before the trial, during the trial, and even after the trial. For those of you not familiar with the trial, Tory Lanez, rapper, R&B singer, producer, shot Megan Thee Stallion in the foot in 2020. And the trial was brought to court in just last year, 2022. And as we all know now, he was found guilty on those charges. But Megan has been treated like the villain. She's been made to be the villain in this, being mocked, being her trauma being minimized. And this experience that Megan went through is something that all Black women face, especially when we are affected by violence. This is something that's called misogynoir. This was a term that was coined by the feminist writer Moya Bailey. And basically, misogynoir is the intersection of race and gender. So it's something specifically that affects Black women. And misogyny is the, hatred, contempt for, and just prejudice against women. So misogynoir is when that misogyny is directed specifically towards Black women. And this is the subject that we're going to discuss today. I'm bringing in two journalists who wrote these incredible pieces on the case. The first one is Jamila Lemieux, who wrote an article for BET called Free Megan. And the second journalist, is Taylor Crumpton, who also wrote a piece for Harper's Bazaar on it. And she specifically had misogynoir in her title. So we're going to discuss that today and get into it because I really want to address the fact that when Black women are harmed, when Black women are subject of violence, for some reason, our trauma is not taken seriously. Our trauma is minimized, like I said earlier, and mocked. And we have to have this discussion because it needs to stop. And we can only do this as a community. So enjoy this conversation with us. And I hope by the end of it, you'll have a different perspective and understanding and empathy towards Black women and violence. All right, I want to get right into this important conversation with my first guest, Jamila. Jamila, welcome to The Frequency. Thank you for being here. I want to get right into your article because I think it was so important. You wrote it, and it was released actually right a couple of days before the verdict. And you titled it Free Megan. Why did you choose that title? And what did you mean by that?
I feel that Megan has been trapped since this incident happened. She's been trapped by the way we respond to violence against women in this country, and in particular, the way we respond to violence against Black women.
Right.
She's been subject to a lot of online abuse and harassment, rampant speculation about what indeed happened and the nature of the relationship between her and Tory Lanez, and speculation about her sexuality and her involvement with other men. And she has not been allowed to adequately grieve what happened to her at the hands of someone who is a friend. She has not been treated overwhelmingly as a victim. She's been treated as if she's done something wrong.
Right. Why do you think that when it comes to, women and Black women in particular, that we are not believed?
There's a long history of characterizing Black women as inherently bad in order to justify our place in the society, dating back to when we were enslaved, that Black women are, treated as if there's some sort of sexually aggressive, unladylike, unworthy of protection, untrustworthy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these beliefs about us have been passed down to us as a people. And we tend to parrot some of the worst ideas and attitudes about Black women.
Do you think it falls into that old trope of Black women are strong? We're so strong that we don't need any empathy or sympathy or...
Absolutely. The trope of the strong Black woman that many of us have embraced as, a source of self-esteem and a way to survive and navigate the world, holding on to the idea that we can just simply withstand more pain than other people has done us great harm. And I think that was absolutely at play during this situation.
Yeah, it got to the point where she first put out a tweet about it's not a joke, because there were memes and jokes and so many people came forward and made fun of it. I mean, celebrities, just regular online people, a lot of harassment. And then she had another, maybe about 2-3 weeks after that, she had another post where she came online on Instagram and literally had a breakdown, to show, like, Black women have to show that they're bleeding, they're dying, there's pain, there's cry, we have to cry in order for not even to get a little, just to get a little bit of sympathy for us to be believed. And I think that right there goes back to what you said about how it's harming us to be perceived as strong and not perceived as, women that need, sympathy or empathy, or to be believed when we are harmed. Another thing too, I don't like the jokes that were made about her and the lines. In particular, Drake had a song that he put out, with the line about her, lying, even though they were trying to say that it wasn't in regards to that. I mean, it obviously was. And what do you think about that when they take our pain and make it into a punchline?
Yeah, it was absolutely disgusting for Drake to do that. He's somebody who's a more senior artist than her. He's almost a decade older than Megan. He's been in the industry a longer amount of time. He's got the reputation and the influence that he does. And for him to make light of the situation and insinuate that she was lying, or even to just joke about the fact that a lot of people believe she was lying, was really vile, and it goes back to Black women not being trusted, not being believed, because there were a lot of people who took to the internet to say that this woman was lying, that it didn't happen to her. And that was in spite of reports from doctors, that was in spite of the fact that the state of California chose to press charges against Tory Lanez. This was not a personal injury trial. Megan did not go after Tory. In fact, at the beginning of this, she protected him. Her instinct was to lie about what happened for fear that he or both of them would be harmed at the hands of the police. Like that she thought about his safety and his protection says so much, when so few people have thought about her safety and her protection, as well as her mental health and her ability to recover.
Exactly.
Up next, we're joined by pop culture writer Taylor Crumpton, whose article started this conversation. We'll be back.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Welcome back to The Frequency. We're discussing Misogynoir, and joining me now is writer Taylor Crumpton, whose article really opened the door for this discussion, bringing up hip-hop, misogyny, and issues that face Black women overall. Welcome, Taylor.
How are you? I'm so happy to be sharing the screen with you right now.
I am so honored to have you and Jamila. This is just like such an important subject. And you wrote an article right after the incident happened in 2020 in July. And I thought it was, important to have your voice on. So the title of the article, Women in Hip Hop Cannot Thrive While Misogynoir Exists. And then you put in a byline, like, the jokes about Megan Thee Stallion's traumatic shooting sheds the light on the bigger issue of misogynoir and in hip hop, and it must be eradicated. That right there. Talk to me about your article and what made you write it.
When I first heard of Megan Thee Stallion's incident, my mind immediately went to the 2009 assault of Rihanna at the hands of Chris Brown. Right. Around that time, I was a teenager. I believe Facebook was the still most popular social media platforms. And that's where I first started to understand that Black women and harassing them and the vilification of them, the dehumanization of them is trendy and is popular. I was in middle school seeing and hearing rumors of why Chris Brown was deemed, I would say, almost like worthy of getting back into the good graces of the hip hop.
Right.
I famously remember him performing Michael Jackson at the BET Awards and Taraji P. Henson getting up and crying and almost welcoming him back to the fold.
I remember that.
In some change later, I have yet to see, you know, this big cultural response, especially from hip hop. I've yet to see a BET Hip Hop Awards, a VH1 Hip Hop Awards, or a show like that kind create space for Megan, for her to feel welcome, for her to, you know, be given the grace and compassion to be a survivor. What we have seen since she first came forward and said, hey, you know, like, this happened to me. I was scared. I was afraid, has been spaces like Rolling Loud and Bright Lanes.
Yeah, that's exactly why I wanted you on. The misinformation that was going around with the different blogs. What do you think that could have combat that besides your voice, besides real journalists writing about it?
When these rumors came from blogs, from online personalities, and even some outlets that specialize in hip hop media, the people who were combating these rumors were Black women, because we will always show up for ourselves, and the hotties, Megan Thee Stallion's fan base, because I believe Black women, we all have this cultural experience of not being believed, of not being heard, of being vilified, of being dehumanized, and being disbelieved. But the Megan Thee Stallion case was interesting because we also saw an increase of Black women personalities being on the side of Lanez, right? We also saw this, I don't want to say emergence, but this presence of internalized misogynoir coming out in Black women personalities, Black women musicians that were making fun and joking of Megan's assault. I think famously, when the incident first occurred, Drea Mitchell was on a podcast and confirmed Megan Thee Stallion's assault at the hands of Tory Lanez to the interpersonal violence between Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown, and said, I want that type of love. You know, very recently, there was a TikTok video that went viral reenacting the scene from What's Love Got to Do with It when Tina is escaping abuse from Ike. Like, these pop culture moments are trendy and are profitable. And it's something that we all know, but what it just reinforces is whether you have been shot in the foot, whether you have been
physically assaulted,
it's funny and it's going to make money and it's going to be profitable. So I feel that the people who came forward and had their voices were heard knew that that wasn't going to be trendy, knew that that was also going to open them up to subject and attack and critique, but would rather stand in solidarity and show that Black women are deserving of grace and compassion rather than make money making fun of Meg and already just weighing so heavily on this Black woman who was 25 at the time. She lost her mother. She had recently lost her grandmother. So even before these unfounded rumors of, you know, it was a lover's quarrel, people were saying that Megan had sacrificed her mother, her last living parent, for fame and success. So she was already subjugated to lodge a misogynoir and false rumors online about the loss of her parent. Then this gets amplified. Right now she has the Lanez thing. And I think the one thing that stood out to me the most is, regardless of how profitable she is to companies, to men in hip hop, that sadistic nature of misogynoir will always underroot a Black woman's accomplishments, no matter what they do. Because, as I said in my piece, until it is eradicated, until misogynoir is abolished, conditions and situations like this will continue to happen in the culture. And that's just civil negligence. Like, that is a failure.
How do you think we can eradicate it?
I mean, how do we abolish misogyny in our culture?
Right? Exactly.
War is just an offset. It's the intersection of racism and sexism. So how can we make efforts individually and intercommunally to eradicate these structures that exist. You know, it can be as simple as, why aren't Black women journalists being paid the same rate as Black men? Why are the productions of a Black woman always devalued and not being seen as something worthy of respect?
Exactly. Can we bring Jamila back in? See, this is why I wanted to have this conversation, because I think that your writing, both your writings, was a way to battle the misinformation, the things that were going on with the blogs. I mean, right, even before the verdict was decided, they were putting out that he was found not guilty. And it's still going on to the issue of not believing Black women. Do you feel like there should be more? I mean, there's plenty of Black women journalists, but more should be heard on that subject. Do you feel like we should concentrate more on that?
Well, I wish that those were the voices that were being amplified at a time like that. You know, that Black women were the sources that were trusted and looked to talk about this. I think it is worth acknowledging that there weren't Black women representing large media outlets present for the trial. You know, that the few reporters that were in the courtroom that were talking to an audience on a regular basis about what was taking place during the trial, that a number of those Black folks that were there were bloggers, and some of them were bloggers who had an interest in defending or supporting Tory Lanez, you know, and spreading misinformation. I think the misinformation is a tremendous part of this, you know, regardless of the source, because as you said earlier, a lot of Black women are carrying around internalized misogynoir. So they're incapable of defending Megan because they are incapable of seeing her as a victim. I do wish that Black women's voices had been heard, you know, louder during this case. But I will say, you know, there was Taylor's article, there was my article, you know, I know Ivy Ani wrote about it, a number of Black women. I'm looking at the girl's book now, Shanita Hubbard, you know, a lot of Black women writers did speak up and out on behalf of Megan. And a lot of us were essentially saying the same things, which we're saying every time a Black woman is harmed publicly, you know, that we're not believed, we're not trusted, we're deserving of sympathy. We're constantly left to plead for our humanity. Right.
Do you think that it would have made a difference if more Black men spoke up, more Black men, male journalists, do you think?
I wish, you know, regardless of whether they were journalists or celebrities, what was largely absent here were Black men, you know, visible Black men speaking up on behalf of Megan, you know, simply acknowledging that she had been shot, full stop. Right. You know, that was the biggest thing that mattered here. That was what was most important, that this woman had been shot. And, you know, according to people who witnessed it happen, Tory did it. Right. You know,
I think Bun B was the only one that stood up.
He was one of the few.
Maxo Cream as well stood up for Megan Thee Stallion, which I think is indicative, since, you know, you have a Houston hip hop legend, and then you have Maxo, who also was in the same, I would say, like cohort of class of Megan, of regional talents kind of like crossing over. And I thought it was fairly interesting how very shortly after the incident, those two took to social media, Bun B kind of almost acting as like a surrogate father or father figure, saying like, Megan is from Houston, this is our girl, we will defend her. And Maxo also taking approach almost like a brother and sharing his own incident where Lanez, I guess, attempted to jump into like his car at a Jamaican restaurant in LA, which didn't go over well. And Cream was one to kind of name the gender nuances of this, where he was like, you would never do that to me, but you felt comfortable doing that to a woman, which is indicative, because even the way Lane's case with August Alsina, even Lane's case with, I believe, a member of a Love and Hip Hop franchise, there is a history and a repeated pattern of violence, yet that history was never called into question. There was no research being done on, is this an isolated incident or is this a pattern? Because in the court of public opinion, he was the one that needed to be protected. He was the one that needed to be centered.
Right.
And Black men, whether they did it subconsciously or consciously, gathered around him. I remember when LeBron James was in his car blasting Tory Lanez and people said, "You have a daughter."
Right.
What does this mean? And I think that was the distinction, whether you came from a Black woman, whether you have Black women in your life, sisters, aunts, mentors. The sadistic thing about misogynoir is that it was so rampantly at play in the culture and in celebrity that I feel like it was such an abundance that the Black woman voices that were coming out, that were writing, that were advocating, reporting, always seemed to be systematically ignored and silenced. And the question, I think Jamila brought it up about Black reporters and the people who were on the scene. We saw after the trial had, ruled, Black journalists were, I still think, ignored. Like a lot of non-Black journalists were amplified. I think about Megan the reporter. She had an interview, a Q&A with BET.com. about like her rise in her reporting, yet Black users on social media critique BET for taking a stance that was read as very apolitical, that was very neutral, but also very telling that they were waiting for the trial at play so then they could put out tweets and social media copy defending Meg Thee Stallion. And that was for a number of Black outlets and sources that we go to, that we look towards, that decided to take an apolitical stance, which inherently read as not supporting Black women when they needed it the most.
Right. Exactly. Okay, y'all. We're gonna take a break and we'll be right back.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
You're watching The Frequency. I'm Dee Barnes, and we're discussing the shooting of Meg Thee Stallion and the trial of Tory Lanez. Joining us once again is Jamila. Jamila, why did you feel someone needed to speak up for Megan?
I was invited to write the article, and I had a lot of feelings about the case, so I was happy to do it. I wish that I had a louder voice to speak up for Megan. I wish that me writing something about it could do more. Again, there's been this sustained chorus of Black women voices from the beginning standing with Megan, but there are, few people, it seems, that are willing to hear us. So if nothing else, if I can provide confirmation for other Black women that you're not crazy, that you're not wrong, that what you're seeing is real, what you're experiencing is real, and that we deserve better.
And you did that, and I thank you. And I know other Black women thank you too. It was important. Same question with you, Taylor. What made you, sit down and write that article in particular about hip hop? Not that I don't understand personally, but please elaborate on that.
I mean, I think your presence and career is very emblematic of why I took the approach to address gendered violence in hip hop. Earlier in that summer, On the Record had released on HBO Max the documentary centering the Black woman voices who were survivors of Russell Simmons' alleged sexual assault. And at the time of its release, I was in a Twitter chat with two Black women journalists, and the resounding theme was, who is going to step out and cover this? Who is going to be public about the way this documentary impacted them? And at the time of its release, in the press, Russell Simmons was the one on the Breakfast Club being interviewed by Ebro.
Right.
And all of the media around that time of the documentary still centered the man who allegedly was the perpetrator of the harm against these women.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a cycle, it's a decades long cycle. And it is heartbreaking to see with every decade, there's more Black women, and the harm that they endure always results in their absence from an industry and a culture and a genre that prides itself in only being told through a Black male lens.
Right.
These not even incidents, these attacks of targeted harm add to this monolithic idea that hip hop is a genre and a culture for Black men by Black men. And the eradication of women like yourself, like Drew Dixon, like even the violence that Lil' Kim endured by men in hip hop who were seen as stakeholders, who were seen as powerful, is very frightening as a Black woman in music, as a Black woman who loves hip hop and journalism. So whenever this first occurred, I was invited by Harper's Bazaar to write about it as someone who has seen Megan rise as a fellow Black woman from Texas. And I think I had to remind people that she is just the latest in an unfortunate legacy of Black women in music who were sacrificed for Black men to be protected in this industry. And especially at a time in 2020 where there was this, quote, rise of the woman rapper, the rise of women in hip hop.
Right.
And even though Megan was representative of that rise, it also quickly showed how much the industry was ready to eliminate her, was ready to eradicate her, and kind of revert back to being so male-centric.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. There you have it. I mean, we've covered it. We've covered it. And in all honesty, I think it's because of Black women and journalists in particular. If we do not voice and call out these things, you know what I mean, to hold these people accountable, I don't think anyone will. And even when there's other platforms that are trying to present it, I don't think that the perspective is on point as much as it's coming from our voice. Do you follow me what I'm saying? Like, if it wasn't for us having us, there would be no, what am I trying to say? There would be no real protection. There would be no real voice for us if we did not write these, articles. If you guys did not write those articles, I don't think that people would really be, and countless other women journalists. And like Jamila was saying that, I wish they were elevated more. I wish it was louder. But I do believe, though, that they did do something. Even though you might not feel it, it's a small part. I do feel like it's part of an overall bigger picture. And I feel like a lot of people were listening and could relate and could hear your voice in that it was it was defending something that couldn't be defended. And thinking about Megan and what she's going through, I hope she's healing, and I hope she knows that she's loved and she's surrounded by sisters that do love her. There are a lot of women out there that do support her. And then I hope that all the positive voices drown out all the negativity.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss how and why Black women cover for Black men.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
One of the strangest things about Misogynoir is that Black women are being abused by the hands of Black men. So why do Black women feel like they have to protect their abusers?
Black women are in a precarious situation when they've been harmed, by a member of their own community or someone else, because we don't have a good relationship with the police either. We can't trust them to take our needs and concerns seriously and not to react to us without violence. But I think that as a community, Black people have been very clear on the threat against Black men for many years, and we've taken it very seriously. We've wanted to protect our men from the violence of white supremacy, from the violence of law enforcement. And our focus on that protection has allowed us to sacrifice the protection of Black women and girls. Anytime a noteworthy Black man has been accused of violence against women, Black women in particular, there's always this response from the community, for much of the community, to protect him, we don't want to see him go into the system. If he's a prominent man, we don't want to see him we don't want to see him lose all that he's fought for and all that he's, succeeded and accomplished. And, it is very much to our detriment that we are unwilling to be honest about, the violence that some Black men perpetuate,
Right. And we always get accused of tearing a Black man down. So that's one of the things that I heard continuously about it. Taylor, how do you respond to that?
Historically, Black women have been told to protect the community at the expense of themselves, to protect the Black man at the expense of themselves. She really just eloquently, illustrated all of the individual, societal, political factors, why that belief is something that is integrated and embedded into the ethos and the ideology of the Black woman. However, there has yet to be a moment of cultural teaching. What happens when a Black woman is assaulted by a Black man? Where have been the conversations in the home about that? Where have been the conversations in a lot of Black spaces? I think Megan said she did not want to have the interaction of the state and the criminal justice system. What she is saying is, I know what happens when I, as a Black woman, report and get the state involved in something that is an interpersonal matter, when this is just between two members of the community. Because we know the criminal justice system has always historically been unfair and unjust to people of African descent, with a hyper focus on Black men. We also know that when a survivor of gun violence, when a survivor of domestic violence goes to the courts and the legal system, they are never centered. The ruling, even though it gave validity to Megan's claims, not stop the continued harassment and violence that she will endure from members of her own community. In fact, it seems to amplify and ramp up that continued harassment and violence because her case was not only in just the court in the state of California, it was on social media. And that seems to be a never-ending cycle where justice is never truly given. So we are in this moment of pop culture where these things are going to be archived and documented, how we're failing Black women. And as I said in my article, it is not the responsibility of Megan and her peers to do the work. Inherently, it's not the labor and responsibility of Black women journalists, of editors, of Black women with these platforms. That responsibility is on men to really internalize and interrogate and work through and process and do the labor of work of eradicating misogynoir in themselves and their communities and their stakeholders. Why was Tory Lanez so valuable and worth defending at the expense of Megan? Why did DaBaby release songs about Meg Thee Stallion and sleeping with her? Why is it okay for rappers to make music videos where a stallion's leg is being cut off? Like, when is enough enough? When are their peers going to step in? And what we've continually to see is that because they do not deem it a problem, that interaction, that intervention is not going to come.
Mm-hmm. They don't deem it as their problem.
It's their problem. Black women did not create misogynoir. Women did not create misogyny. Those are structural forces of the patriarchy. That is their responsibility and labor to do. We should be able to just take care of ourselves. Like, Black women deserve care and Black women deserve grace. It is not Megan's responsibility to call out every rapper that makes a line about her.
Right. I agree. And I think, you know, it's been years since my incident, and I still see no structural change. I still see not a lot of men stepping up publicly and saying what needs to be said. It's always fallen on the shoulders of Black women. I mean, we seem to be the ones that carry the community, you know, carry the family. And I don't know what it's going to take to change that, but I do believe that your writing, both of you, your voices, even though you think they're not being heard, they are being heard, and they are being listened to and taken into consideration. And I think this generation in particular, and what I mean by that is this whole social media thing, it's different. I mean, the things have changed, even though the things have, they seem worse for Megan with, you know, the online harassment, the memes, the music, everything that you brought up. I think that fighting that with these articles and with platforms like this to speak up about it and holding them accountable is going to continue to help push that change, you know. And we do need more men to speak up about it. I mean, they're fathers, they have, you know, they have mothers, there's sisters, they have sisters and cousins and aunts and grandmothers. And it is mind-boggling to me that they don't speak up enough, you know. And honestly, Tory, I don't feel like he was even thought of in that way or elevated in that way until he harmed this Black woman. And all of a sudden it became like he, you know, we have to rally around him, and they didn't rally around Megan. So I don't know what it's going to take to change it, but I am glad that we are having this discussion about it. And like I said earlier, I hope, you know, if Megan sees this, I hope she's healing. I hope she knows she's loved and supported. And, you know, when she's ready to come back, we're going to welcome her with open arms. Thank you both. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on here and speaking truth to power. Because like I said earlier, we've all we've got, you know, and if Black women don't stand up for each other, I don't think that anybody's going to stand up for us. So thank you.
When we come back, my closing thoughts.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Before we go, I'd like to read something that I wrote. I think it's very important, and it really drives home the subject of what we discussed today. Okay, so bear with me, all right? Black women are the victims of a unique intersectional oppression. Megan's experience of not being believed, being mocked, and her harm being minimized is something that is shared by many Black women. This failure to protect Black women needs to change. Victims of abuse should not have to be continuously harassed for speaking out. How do we spread awareness? By having these important conversations. Until we are all holding each other accountable for making light of these serious and life-alternating events, then nothing will change. I'm speaking from my experience. I'm speaking from your experience. And I want you guys to really think about it the next time a woman in your life is harmed. Think about it carefully. I want you to really, really have empathy for what they're going through, and try to show support. Believe women, believe Black women. Thank you for tuning into The Frequency right here on the Black Star Network. I'll catch you next time. We out.